This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 161.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 161, and today's special guest is Bill Widmer. He is a search engine optimization specialist, and SEO is such a huge role of running an online business. So Bill decided to spill the beans and share a lot of awesome techniques that will help you get better rankings on Google and other search engines. So make sure you listen to this episode very, very carefully. Hi, Bill, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Bill, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what is that you do as a business?
Sure, absolutely. So at my core, I do SEO. I work typically with other B2B service business owners. So that usually looks like web design or app development or software as a service. And I essentially help them create world-class content and then rank that content on Google. And then we turn that traffic, organic traffic, into sales. And that's what I do in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And okay, so SEO, this is a huge part of any online entrepreneur or any entrepreneur that has an online presence, right? Because in my opinion, SEO is the best way to get traffic, is the longest lasting. There's so many things that I could keep saying about SEO since, it's something that I do as well for my websites, and I love that. So how did you get into that whole search engine optimization?
Absolutely. So it started 5 years ago when I started my very first online business. It was an e-commerce store on Shopify. And I actually know my very first business was selling promotional products, but that didn't last very long. My only customers were my professor, who convinced me to start the business, and my mom.
Nice.
But after that, it evolved into e-commerce. And I really enjoyed it, but I never actually made any money. I always broke even. And then I found a website called Pro Blogger, and they had a job board for freelance writing work. And I thought that sounded really interesting. I'd always been into writing. So I said, you know what, let's do it. Let's try it out. And I got paid $5 for an article that took me like 3 hours. And yeah, it was terrible pay. But at the same time, the fact that I actually got paid for something that I had written felt really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. So I continued down that path, and I slowly raised my wage over time. I raised how much I charge my clients because I had samples now. And then that had a natural progression into this thing called content marketing. So I started learning marketing aspects so that way I could charge more to promote my content and eventually actually rank that content once I started learning about SEO. So it was just kind of a natural progression of writing to marketing to SEO.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And how long do you think it took you from writing that first article all the way until, building your own SEO agency?
Probably about a year and a half. Ish, maybe 2 years, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm asking you because a lot of people, a lot of listeners of this podcast, they're always asking me these questions like, how long does it take to build your brand? How long? There's that question that everybody asks, and I could never answer. They're like, how long does it take till you make money online? I'm like, that's that's a really good question, and there's no answer to that.
It is a really difficult question to ask, but I will say it depends on a couple of things. Number one, how much time you're actually willing to put into it. And number two, how lucky you happen to get. And I hate to say that luck is a part of it, but it is a bit of a part in how fast you actually make money. You can be the most unlucky person in the world and still make money online. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think luck plays such a big role in it? Like, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So for me, I kind of got lucky in that clients happened to see my writing work and then reach out to me. It wasn't me reaching out to them. Like my initial clients were, but some of my best clients, like Bold Commerce, for example, I'm working with them. They're actually my Canadian client. They reached out to me after seeing some of my writing for another one of my clients. So that was in huge part luck that they just happened to see that writing and then reach out to me.
Mm-hmm. That's really awesome. I guess in here lies the lesson that, being everywhere and having your content everywhere kind of helps.
Absolutely. Actually, if I want to give one tip to anybody listening to this who wants to be a writer or wants to get their name out there with digital marketing, do guest posting. Find the number one blogs in your industry, whatever that might be, and write guest posts for them. But don't just throw together some 500 or 1,000 word piece of crap article and throw it out there. Make sure it's something that's actually really, really good, that whoever's reading it is going to be like, wow, this is awesome. I want to know who wrote it and how can I get in touch with them. So just my little tip of the day there.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. And I've seen some very successful marketing agencies on different aspects of marketing doing extremely well because of that. Because sharing amazing content on other platforms other than their own blog, and then getting like really high-end clients just from putting out content.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and do podcast interviews too.
Yeah, that helps. And all right, Bill. So you mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you concentrate on B2B, right? So that's also a question that a lot of people ask me, especially offline businesses. Offline business owners that I meet locally, they would ask me, "Yeah, it's all great. You're telling me to write content, and you can write about you're traveling if you're a travel blogger, or you could talk about creating content by creating content." And a lot of them are completely lost when it comes to creating content for a business or for B2B, especially if they're a business and they're trying to market themselves to other businesses. So that's, do you have any tips on creating that kind of content? How should they research it? How should they approach it?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that business owners are people too. Well, I can't talk. Business owners are people too. Even if they're B2B, it's still, these people are still Googling things. They're still, they have basic human needs. They need companionship and all that kind of thing. I would say the best way to find topics specifically for other business owners is to look out and see what those people are reading right now. So look at your competitors to see what they're writing about. Look at, major blogs in the industry that you think are probably within that audience and see what they're writing about. And if you really want to get into it, type your competitors or those major blogs into a tool called BuzzSumo, and you'll see what's getting the most shares. Or personally, I like the tool Ahrefs for all kinds of SEO stuff, but you can plug their URLs into Ahrefs and it will show you their best content by links. So the number of backlinks they built, which is an important part of SEO. And that'll tell you, okay, a lot of people are linking to this, which means people probably like this, unless they're just crazy link builders. But a lot of the time, even if they are, it's still a good piece of content.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thank you for sharing, Bill.
And one big thing that I forgot to mention. If you do use Ahrefs, they'll show you the cost per click of your keywords. So if you find their top content and then figure out what keyword it's ranking for, if it has a high cost per click, that probably means that they're making money on it because people are willing to put money down to get clicks on that keyword. So they have to be making some kind of investment, return on investment.
That's a really good tip as well. I never thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've thought of looking at the price of these keywords and figuring out if there's a demand for a specific niche or whatever. But combining these two strategies that you just mentioned, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I do it all the time. That's how I come up with a lot of the content for my clients is, okay, if people are willing to spend $50 a click on this, obviously they're getting some kind of return on that. They wouldn't just be throwing this money away like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Bill, since you did mention Ahrefs, And there are many other comparable tools that do extremely well as a kind of tool to look at your own progress, to quote unquote spy on your competitors, figuring out some keywords, some content ideas. Why did you go with Ahrefs? Why do you prefer that tool?
A couple of reasons. First and foremost, from what I can tell, they have the absolute most features out of any SEO tool that I've found. It's just they have everything they have is fantastic. It's user friendly. It's well documented. Another reason is because they're heavily focused on SEO, whereas other tools like maybe SEMrush is more of the PPC side with some SEO built in after the fact. And then the third reason is Tim Solo is just an awesome dude, and they write amazing content that really teaches people SEO, and I think that's awesome, and I want to stand behind that. So that's just another reason I use their tool.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And
sure.
That's another question that I see quite often, because people are breaking their heads trying to figure out which tool is best, especially because pricing is not that different for many of them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you could only pick one tool, I would go with Ahrefs. If you could have two, I would also get Cognitive SEO.
Yes, I've never actually tried this one. I've heard of it. I've never tried it.
So Cognitive SEO, the reason I use it, I don't use any of its features except for one. I mean, I'm sure the other features are great, but the one that I use is their content optimizer tool, which actually shows you using artificial intelligence how well optimized a post is for a given keyword. And a lot of the time, you'll actually find that there's a correlation between content optimization and ranking. So the more optimized it is based on their algorithm, the higher it's going to rank. And I've actually found that by optimizing my pages using that tool, I've actually increased rankings. Literally, I can optimize the page, plug it into Google Search Console, and then my rankings will go up like within 5 minutes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't work every time, but when it does, I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a great tip. And, this is why I do these kind of interviews on this podcast to find this kind of information.
Absolutely. I love SEO. I find it fascinating. So I love sharing about it.
All right, Bill. So let's stick with that SEO subject we're going with. So what do you think would be the 5, or it doesn't have to be 5. Give us like some of the biggest misconceptions about SEO that you still stumble upon in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, one of the big ones is time that it takes to rank. People, for some reason, still think that they can rank content within, a couple weeks or even just a couple months. But frankly, unless it's a ridiculously easy keyword to rank for, or you have an insanely high domain authority, you're going to be looking at least 3 to 6 months, if not up to a year, to rank for certain keywords. The next one is content frequency. The amount of content that you put out has no correlation whatsoever with Google rankings. Some of my clients or even my own sites, I literally only post like maybe once every month or two, but they're really high quality articles, and I'm still ranking them just fine. Did you have a question? I know you're about to say something.
No, I'm absorbing the information.
Okay, perfect. So that's a big one. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put out an article every day or every week. Every month or two even is fine. As long as it's quality, it has to be quality. You can't just throw out these 500 or 1,000 word quote unquote SEO articles anymore. It just, unless you're in an extremely uncompetitive niche where nobody has started creating content yet, you're going to have a really hard time ranking anything. So good quality. And then let's see, what else? Targeting the right keywords. People need to make sure that they're not just going after random keywords. Do what I said before. Do that competitive analysis to see what's working really well. Then do some keyword research based off of that. Then go off those keywords rather than just diving straight into random keywords you picked off of, Google Keyword Planner or something.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's awesome. These are good ones, and I can't tell you well, I'm not an SEO expert, so I don't know if I should agree or disagree with you on things. But that posting frequency, for some reason, I have a really hard time believing that it's not the frequency itself, is the consistency. That, I don't know, does that matter to Google? Like how consistent you are with your posting, not frequent but consistent.
No, not really.
No.
They don't care about how consistent it is. Like I said, you can write articles for a couple months and then stop writing completely, and then a couple years later you could be ranking all those articles, even though you haven't written anything new. What they care about is relevancy and quality. Google's main goal is to rank the best content for a given query. So the amount of times you posted this week or this month, or how consistently you posted, has nothing to do with how well your content matches a given query. Okay,
that makes sense. And was it, who was it? Was it Brian Dean from Backlinko that, keeps saying how he had, I don't know, I think 30 or 35 articles on his blog, and the blog is many years old, and all of them rank really well still. And I think that was one of his points that, his own example, that you don't need to post all the time in order to rank well. You just need to post, good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all it comes down to. I learned a lot from Brian Dean. He's a really smart dude.
Yeah. All right, Bill. So let's keep on moving with this episode. And can you tell us a little bit more about your company and maybe getting clients? Like how did you build it to? I guess it's a full-time gig for you, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How did you get to the point, as in deciding that, okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna dedicate all of my time with that. I'm not gonna keep looking for little side jobs, writing gigs, or a job of any kind. Like, I'm dedicated to that. What made you make that jump?
All right, Alex, are you ready for story time?
Sure.
So, I did it probably much riskier than anyone I know would have ever done it. I kind of forced myself to make it work or die. Back in college, I was working at Starbucks, and like most jobs I had, I just couldn't stand it. I hate being confined to one room, one space, and standing all the time and not being in control of my own whatever it is I'm doing. So I got one writing client, and they, like I said, they paid really, really not well. It was lower than minimum wage. And then I quit the job. I just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to make it happen. I hate working here. I can't do it anymore. So from there, I just started taking on writing clients. And then, as you know, I learned the content marketing and the SEO. I would say the time when I quit that job till the time I actually made enough money to be able to quit the job was probably somewhere in the 3 to 6 months range. And that's barely scraping by. I mean, that's not I made enough money to quit the job and, save and pay off my debt and all this other stuff. No, that was, I made enough money to pay my bills this month. Mm-hmm. So it took about 3 to 6 months to get to that point. And then from there to the actual agency, where I wasn't a freelancer anymore, probably another year or so. And I'm only saying that because for that first, year and a half or whatever it was, I was just kind of saying yes to every opportunity that came my way. Oh, you want to write for this? Yeah, sure. Oh, you want to do SEO for this site? Yeah, sure. It was very unfocused. It was just me saying yes to any work I could find. And a big part of that came from, I wasn't financially secure. We were struggling. And I just said yes to everything. And it was a good learning experience, but along the way, there were some bumps. There were clients that I should have obviously said no to. And we butted heads. It didn't go well. And then, about after a year and a half is when I finally said, you know what, I got to get more focused on this. I kind of am figuring out generally who I like to work with. I still didn't have an actual niche at that point. It was just kind of okay, I know what I'm doing, but I don't know who exactly I'm doing it for. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes total sense. And it's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's one thing that you mentioned there are obviously a few clients that you shouldn't have worked with. So maybe you could share some tips on how you personally would spot a client. What would a client say or do to position itself in such a way that you would know right away you don't want to work with that person or that company?
Well, number one is, do they care? Like, do I get a feeling that they care about the business? They care about the content they're going to put out. They care about, the morality of what they're doing. If they don't care, then I do not want to work with them. I should not work with them. Because that comes out in their work, that comes out in the way that they interact with you, the way that they give you feedback on your work. Like, they just don't care. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm trying to put it, but basically, because they don't care, it just really puts me off and puts me down and makes me not want to actually work for them. Because I want people to care about the things that I do. I put a lot of time and effort into this content, and I want people to enjoy that. I want people to say, wow, yeah, you did a great job. I'm a feedback kind of guy. I love getting feedback, positive or negative. But if it's feedback that you just don't care, then I'm not into that. The other thing is a personality fit. So I'm not someone who really likes to be micromanaged. And I've had some clients in the past who have tried to micromanage everything. Like, as soon as I finish the outline, they want to see it. They want to edit it. As soon as I finish the first section, they want to see it. They want to edit it. As soon as I finish the first draft, all of a sudden, nope, this is garbage. Throw it out. Do it all over again. Like, I can't work like that. I feel too confined, too restricted, and I get really aggravated. So people who are like that, I can't work with. So I think it's more of on a gut level. Like, should I be working with this person? On a gut level, can you feel that when you're talking to them? And if the answer is no, you should usually listen to your gut.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want anybody working with terrible clients. So I hope it was good enough to help somebody out.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I've done some. I don't want to say consulting or services. How should I put it? I've done some online services for mostly online businesses back in the past. And to be honest, I didn't like it so much that I'm trying to stay away from it as much as possible. Sometimes people would ask me some SEO gigs or anything really, even just setting up a website and helping them with some content. And I just say no, because I guess I feel right away from most of these people how they are doing it simply because somebody, some cousin of a friend's neighbor told them that they should do some SEO, or that they should have a website, or they should, have a blog on their website, and they have no clue what they're doing and they don't care what they're doing. All they want is to hire someone for the least amount possible to do all that, whatever work it is, because they have no clue what that work is and they don't care. It just somebody told them, so they're going for it.
Yeah, Alex, that's another really good point too, is don't undercut yourself. Don't let people discount you or nickel and dime you. Figure out what you're worth and then charge that. Don't be afraid to charge that. And if people are trying to really get you down, this will come over time as you get more experience, but know that you are worth what you're charging. You're probably worth more than what you're charging. So be confident in that and don't let people bring that down.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, Bill. So let's look at some small businesses or, solopreneurs, people who are trying to launch, like you mentioned, like you had your first e-commerce store, or, just a blog selling their handmade crafts, something. What are some of the SEO things that they can do without really going into learning, how to use tools or buying expensive tools or hiring people? What are these like smaller websites, smaller businesses can do to improve their SEO in, some basic things that people may maybe overlook, but everyone is capable of doing?
Okay, so you're looking for SEO advice that anybody can use without spending a ton of money, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's see. I really, really like having Ahrefs for a lot of things because all of the free keyword research tools out there just don't give you the information that you need to accurately choose a keyword. Like you can use Google Keyword Planner, but it's very rudimentary. There's not a lot to it. You're kind of guessing. So if you absolutely can't spend the money on a tool, I would say the next best thing is to use a free tool like BuzzSumo. It's free for the first couple searches anyway. Plug your competitors into BuzzSumo and see what their most shared and most linked to pages are. I think you can do that for free. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can, yeah.
Yeah, so and then use that to kind of get your keyword research started. So say, okay, so here's their most popular articles based on links and shares. So what are the keywords they're targeting? How can I create something better that I can target a similar keyword or the same keyword and beat them out? The other thing, I would focus a lot of time, especially in the beginning, obviously, yes, on creating amazing content. I would create like 1 to 5, maybe really, really strong articles and make sure that they're focused around buyer intent. So that cost per click that we talked about, I believe you can see that in Google AdWords or Google Keyword Planner. And then the other thing I would focus a ton of time on is building links to that content. So writing guest posts, interviewing on podcasts, doing resource page link building, which is where you go on Google and you find resource pages in your niche, which are literally just pages that link out to tons of resources in that niche, and then reach out to those people and say, hey, I just made this amazing article that would be a great fit for your resource page, kind of email. And then I think just those two things alone, amazing content and building links, that's really going to set you up for a snowball effect later on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And as you mentioned, these are completely free to use. Mm-hmm. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have a couple of bucks to make things easier, there's a tool called Mailshake. I think it's only like $10 a month. And they give you the ability to mass send emails, templated emails, and add follow-ups and tracking statistics on who opened and replied. And that's a great way when you're really reaching out to those resource pages. If you reach out to 50 or 100 at a time, you can automatically follow up with them and see who opened and who didn't. So you can kind of keep track of all of that.
Thanks for sharing. This is really awesome. And I think I should use that tool when I send out my podcast invitations to people like you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would do that. I did it when I reached out. I do campaigns where I reach out to podcast owners and I use Mailshake for that. I haven't thought of that, but that's a great tip because, sometimes people just don't see your email in their inbox. So they're not ignoring you. They're not replying because they have nothing to tell you. They just never got your email or never saw it for whatever reason, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of the time I get probably at least 50% of my replies come from the follow-up. So it's huge. You have to follow up. And I mean, people might be, they opened your email on their phone and then their kid grabbed their leg and now they have to be off doing something else. They just forgot about it. People aren't ignoring you. They're busy. They have other things going on.
Makes sense. All right, Bill. So what do you think about buying links and using PBNs and all that, all the stuff that's considered gray area or black area against Google's rules? Well, basically, what I'm asking is, what do you think about trying to game the system, trying to game the SEO rules and, trying to rank your content without being very ethical or without respecting their rules?
I think it's a terrible idea. I don't use any gray or black hat tactics. And in case anybody doesn't know, white hat SEO is playing by Google's rules, not doing anything that breaks their terms of service. Whereas gray hat is like, it's kind of muddy. And then black hat is like, okay, yeah, you're obviously breaking their terms of service. So a private blog network is a network of people who created these private blogs, their own websites, and they're just internally linking between those sites to outside content to help it rank by getting all of those backlinks really quickly. Now, it works. It still does work. You have to be really, really careful with it, but it does work. The problem is it works more in the short term than the long term, because there's a huge chance that eventually Google is going to catch you, or one of your competitors is going to analyze your backlink profile and see that you're doing it, and they're going to report you, and you're going to get caught eventually. So if you're looking to build a serious, long-term, profitable, healthy business, then I would completely avoid gray or black hat tactics, because they could eventually backfire on you. They probably will eventually backfire on you. But if you're just looking to, throw something up real quick, make some quick money and then get out, I guess, then black hat would work for you. But that's not my style. That's not what I would do. I would highly recommend against it.
Thank you for sharing that, Bill. And I'm totally with you on this one. I've admitted that on other episodes and blog posts, that when I first started learning about online marketing, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I did fall for quite a few of these tricks, and I didn't think of my business or growing my business in the long term. I was thinking of exactly that. What can I do to rank right now or the fastest possible, and to start making money? And, surprise, surprise, all of the blogs that I applied those gray hat and black hat SEO techniques to, they all got shut down, right? Big surprise.
Yeah, Alex, exactly. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Exactly, yeah.
And, imagine this. Imagine you do have a business for 5-10 years, and you do all this black hat stuff and it works. And then all of a sudden it gets shut down and you just lose your income, all of your income overnight. It is brutal. Trust me, I've actually had it happen to me, not because of black hat tactics, because we lost two of our biggest clients, me and my partner Kayla, and we lost basically all of our income overnight, and it is not fun. So just, keep that in your mind.
Wow, yeah, that's that's scary. And yeah, that was my point, that if you're in it for the long term, then just why not play by the rules and not risk it, especially when the risk is so high. Exactly. I don't know if you feel comfortable or if you want to give us maybe a little bit more details, because what you just said, it's very scary and intriguing. Losing your two best clients overnight. Maybe you could share some details on not necessarily, well, maybe how it happened, but more of how you recovered from that. How you didn't say, okay, you know what, screw that, I'm gonna go get my first job back at Starbucks. At least I can't lose my clients there. So yeah, can you share any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem sharing. So I actually shared this story with John Lee Dumas on EO Fire. And it's really fascinating. I think it's a great story to share because it teaches people a lot. So a couple of years ago, me and my business partner, Kayla, we decided, why don't we go live in an RV and travel? So we ended up, right after I got out of college, not long after I quit Starbucks, when we were still kind of struggling with money, we decided, you know what, screw it. Let's just buy an RV. We'll save money because we'll be on the road and we won't have rent and all this other stuff. So we did it, and we started traveling the East Coast. We went up to Maine. If you ever get a chance, visit Acadia National Park. It is gorgeous in Maine. Probably our favorite place ever. And then on our way back down, we stopped in Pennsylvania again, where we originally lived, to attend our friend's wedding. And while we were there, me and Kayla each lost one of our clients. And that totaled about 80% of our revenue every month. Long story short, it was basically just we were kind of slacking a little bit. And also it was kind of they were being impatient about the results coming in. And they just said, you know what, we're pulling the plug. We're not seeing the return on this yet. And we lost them. And now we're stuck in an RV in my grandparents' backyard with no money. We couldn't pay the RV rent. We couldn't buy food. We basically completely relied on my grandparents to pay for everything for us. And it was brutal. And winter was coming. It was late October at that point, and we were still living out in the RV. So at night it would get real cold. And everything just seemed real bleak at that point. I had tried thinking about, okay, where are we going to move? Where are we going to live? Should I get a job? I looked into multiple jobs, looking to move out into different states because we really didn't want to stay in Pennsylvania. And every day I would listen to JLD's podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, just to kind of keep my head in the game. Like, I know you're down right now, but you got to be able to get over this. You got to be able to get over this. And eventually I did. I mean, every single day we worked like 10 hours real hard, 10 plus, trying to secure new clients. And we worked and we worked and we looked at jobs and we looked at places to live. And eventually we got a client, and that kind of got us back on our feet. You know, we were able to pay for our gas, pay for our RV payment, and we were able to get out of the backyard. And then once we made enough money, we just went straight down to Georgia where it was warm, so we didn't have to winterize the RV. And I guess the lesson here is, number one, be persistent and don't give up. The second you give up is the second that your life can completely turn around, and just you'll stop growing and you'll stop enjoying life. If you are forced into something that you really don't want to do, but you feel like you have to because of a circumstance, most of the time there's always another way out. Just because things seem bleak right now, there's usually, multiple options, even at the worst of times. And then another big thing is to keep listening and keep reading things that kind of keep your head in the game, so to speak. Like, I listen to the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast every day. It was a daily thing. And just listen to things and people who have already accomplished what you want to accomplish, and keep your head around them, because eventually that's going to rub off on you and it will help you in those hard times. And then finally, my last one is, don't be afraid to lose things. Don't be afraid to go after it and lose everything. Because even in the worst of times, even when you're quote unquote homeless, things still aren't that bad. Looking back on it, yeah, things sucked. It was terrible. It was hard, but things still weren't that bad. I mean, we had a roof over our head. My grandma was still getting us food. So, it's not like we were hungry. So things can always be worse. So look on the bright side and just keep chugging.
That's a crazy story. And Bill, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
To be honest, I love these stories, and I think it does teach a really great lesson, which is awesome, which is kind of the point of this podcast as well, to, this whole entrepreneurship thing, or trying to start a business, or actually building and growing it, is not all that beautiful and easy and, just success after success after success, like a lot of people might see it from the outside. It's different, and stories like these are real. And Bill, thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. No problem at all. I want people to know, because it's like you said, it's not success after success, and people don't often get to hear the failure behind the success. And even now, I still have failures. I just see failures as stepping stones to get to where you want to go. You have to go through the failure in order to get to the success.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the way we all should look at it. It's not a failure, just a learning experience.
Just make sure you look at it like a learning experience, and you don't just, wave it under the rug and say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm done with that. Bye.
Yep.
All right. Okay, Bill. So as we're approaching the end of this podcast, what would be your biggest advice or most important advice for someone who is just thinking of starting a business, or someone who started their online business and, they're still lost, they're thinking of growing it, or they have no idea where they're going? Like, what would be that biggest thing they should pay attention to?
Okay. I would say, for me, I had to try a lot of things. I had to try a lot of things before I figured out what it is that I actually wanted to do, what it is that I actually liked doing. So you might have to go over some, quote unquote failures in the beginning of businesses that you try and you just didn't enjoy, they didn't work. And that's okay. I mean, you're still in the startup phase. You're still trying to figure out what you like. That's totally fine. So don't be afraid to try things, even if it's just a little test run to see if you like it. Once you do find something you like, put everything you have behind it. Don't let yourself get distracted by shiny object syndrome. If you know you like something and you can see yourself doing it for 5 to 10 years, then just go at it. Every second of extra time you have, be learning about it, be taking action on it, connect with people who have already done it to see how they did it. And if they'll, look for a mentor if you can to guide you through that process. A mentor is always insanely helpful. And yeah, that'd be my biggest advice.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Bill. And how important do you think is it to work with something that you actually like or that you're passionate about compared to something that, you just know is going to bring money in the end it seems like the industry is very profitable?
I would say passion can come with knowledge. The more you learn about something, the more passionate you become about it. I didn't know anything about SEO, and I did not give a crap about ranking on Google when I first became a writer. I had no idea what it was. I had no interest in it. But the more I learned about SEO, the more passionate and fascinated with it I became. So I would say try to pick something maybe you're not passionate about, but you're at least somewhat interested in. Like for me, I enjoyed writing. I wouldn't say I was passionate about it, but I enjoyed it. And I built upon that. That's kind of like the base. You have to have some kind of enjoyment out of it. For me, at least. I mean, maybe other people aren't like this, but for me, I have to enjoy what I'm doing to some level in order to be able to put in, 10, 12-hour days to build that business initially.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense, and I agree with that. I'm more on the passion side, I guess. I'm like, if you don't love it, just don't do it. Because I've built websites, niche websites around these industries that I completely didn't care about it, was not interested in at all. And some I actually didn't like. And well, guess what? All of those blogs, whatever, were shut down eventually because I simply couldn't bring myself to write a single article or, even look at those products because I hated it. And I think, personally, I believe that's not the way to live your life and to work. I know those things are profitable, but if I hate the subject, I'm not going to touch it.
Well, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate on you, Alex. I definitely agree that you shouldn't do something you completely aren't interested in. But if you hate the writing portion of something, but you enjoy running the site or running the business, you can always hire out a writer to write about the actual content.
That's true.
So I would say, like I said, even if you're not super passionate about something, as long as you have an interest in it, it can grow into a burning passion. I have a burning passion for SEO. I love it. But it didn't start out that way. You know what I mean? It started out as something like, oh, that seems kind of vaguely interesting. Maybe I'll check it out. And it grew into a passion. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Bill. All right. So before you go, can you tell people where they can find out more about you? Where can they get in touch with you? And where can they go to hire you?
Absolutely. So my website is billwidmer.com. You can get in touch with me there through my email at bill@billwidmer.com, or I'm really active on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/billwidmer. You can hire me. I always have a chat with people before we talk about actually working together. So if you're interested in that, go to billwidmer.com/hire-me and fill out the form there, and we'll have a nice little chat. See if I can actually be of help to you, or if you should go in a different direction. And also, I want to put a shameless plug at the end here. Check out Kayla's blog. She is a food blogger, and that's my business and life partner. And she writes about amazing recipes that are really delicious. Eatwithkayla.com. Check that out. I'm sure that she'll really appreciate that.
All right, that's awesome. That's very nice of you, Bill, to promote Kayla's blog on your episode, right?
Hey, she makes me dinner every night for her blog posts, so I have to show a little bit of appreciation.
Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and being on the show. Thank you for sharing your very interesting life experiences, and thank you for sharing all these SEO strategies with the listeners and myself.
Absolutely, Alex. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. As always, head over to extrapodcast.com/161. This is where I'll be putting up show notes page and all the resources mentioned in today's episode. Also head over to extrapodcast.com/YouTube in order to subscribe to Extra Paycheck YouTube channel, as well as extrapodcast.com/Spotify in order to follow the show on Spotify. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.